Jaya we manjo e abatoni. Ti passion même o. Jaya we money. More tolesia ma même pio abinyobe.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Tough Talking Thursday on Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jar, and we're broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In tonight's edition of Tough Talking Thursday, we're going to be looking at plans. You can call them platforms, manifesto. What are they? What is in a plan? And why should all candidates have written plans? Stay with us. We're going to be right back.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jar.
Every time there's elections, we elect leaders based on what? Is it what they tell us that they're going to do or who we think they are? So tonight, we're going to be discussing about plans. What is in a plan? What should we expect in a plan? How are plans generated, or how should they be generated? And in fact, what are elections anyway? And why do we need to have plans, or what do candidates need to have plans in order to be able to run for elected office? With me to discuss this, I have our governance consultant, Mr. Atman Sharif, who's joining us from Minneapolis. Atman, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dennis. Let's do it.
I also have Mr. Larama Yonton. Mr. Larama is joining us from Philadelphia. He is Wakai leaning in these elections. Mr. Yonton, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm not leaning. I'm with the team already.
Oh yeah, he's part of the JNB TAC team. So he got both legs in it. Also, I want to welcome Mr. Jonathan Tayo Dolake. He's member of the ANC, and he's joining us from Sacramento in California. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
I feel quite humble being here. Thanks.
Thank you. We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. Carl Famula will be joining us in a minute, but we want to get this started, right? So let me start with you, Jonathan. If somebody is running for office, either a senator, representative, or president, what do you expect to hear from them? And this is how I want to start it. Are you going to vote for them based on who they are or what they tell you they're going to do? What are you expecting to hear from them?
Thank you, Dennis, for the opportunity given today again. For me to take on a candidate and support a candidate, be it for any of the elected positions, I think I must listen to their plan, what they have in it for the society, gaps that and hiccups or challenges that the society is being faced with, corrective measures that are realistic, that are time-bound, and not only that, but also the track record of the person, because if you must do things, it's not just in wordings, but it must be demonstrable in actions of past. And so I would say those are elements of things that I will look for as an individual for which I will be electing any person for elected position.
Thank you. Let me go to Carl. Jonathan said you would want to hear the plan. Carl, when it comes to elections or people running for office, what is the plan?
You're asking me what the plan is?
Yeah, what does it mean when they say, okay, this person has a plan or has a platform? Basically, what are they talking about?
So typically in politics, people have politics is based on ideology, on some big future picture, some belief system that people are working towards achieving. There is always a big future picture that is painted, a vision of what society should look like, what a culture should look like, and what politicians present themselves as is the solver, the person who is going to help push the agenda for whatever ideological um, framework they're operating in. So if you're an extremist, a Christian conservative extremist, your ideological framework is to make the entire world in sync with biblical, this is just an example, of course, with biblical ideology. So everything, everyone should abide by the 10 Commandments. The world should look the way you think your belief system ideally wants it to be. Another type of worldview would be like a very libertarian worldview where you think that, government should be very small and people should have more freedom to make choices. So there should be some ideological basis for people to have a plan. What I'm seeing in Liberia is no ideology, no plan, no articulation, no clear, concise articulation of what the problem is even. So if you haven't really studied the situation, you're not going to have a solution. So plans are typically solutions, roadmaps to get somewhere. The problem is we have politicians who do not articulate where they're trying to go. They say things like, oh, we're going to fight corruption, or I'm competent. Competence is not an ideology. Everyone should be competent before you try to run for office, but competence in and of itself is not an ideology. It's not enough to say I can read and write and I'm intelligent and I'm qualified to be head of state. Where are you going to take us with your qualifications? Where are those qualifications leading us? That is what the plan is supposed to be. And I see everyone falling short of this. It's like, I'm the most electable candidate. Okay, great. That's good to hear. Where are you taking us? When you're elected, then what? I'm competent, I'm intelligent, I have all this world experience. That's wonderful. Congratulations. And what are you going to do with that? How are you going to apply that to advance the cause? And what is the cause you're trying to advance? That is what I'm not hearing.
Thank you. Mr. Yontan, considering, say, we have slew of candidates, do you look at their plans to see before you take side, or you personally, and what do you see being done in Liberia over time? Do you see that people are differentiated, or political parties or candidates are differentiated based on their plans? Do people follow them because of their plans? And you, as an individual, what is it that you look for before you support a candidate?
So personally, I do look for a number of things. I think things that I'm affected by as a citizen, first and foremost, things that I'm passionate about, and I go through these plans to see what these things reflect my own vision as I look at the holistic picture of the country. Um, a lot of time in Liberia, and this is not to pick on any political party, but political institutions are not driven by that plan. We've had so many situations in which you have this whole mentality of one man with bigger pocket move into the country, form a political party, and expect a mass following of people supporting him, right? So he becomes the de facto law and order, rules and regulation, that constitution of the party, right? So whatever he says becomes the standing policy, and we've seen that over time in our history. And so most of the people, the citizenry, have not been conscientized to that level of, and part of the reason could be, we have a society that's very, illiterate. Not a lot of people can read and write. So I think politicians have some, green card, so to speak, right? In a way that they pivot on the ignorance and the lack of education of the mass population to get away with a lot of things. But I hope that our politics can reach to a level where we can begin having genuine and substantive conversation on the issues. Because when you pick back to what goes there, plan has to be concrete. It has to be the vision that you have, as an institution, as a party, not as an individual, uh, that tie around where you want to see the country, what have been happening over the years, a historical and contemporary perspective of, of the country, where it is at this moment, and where do you think, it has to go. And we have not seen much of that. A lot of what we have seen sometimes, are people who derive, political plans based on attack against, their opponent, the opposition. So it's mostly, parliamentary as compared to having substantive, empirical fights and data that can move the country in a direction.
Thank you. Let me go to admin. Admin, all these plans and everything we're talking about have to do with elections. What are elections, and connect plans to election? Why do we need plans when it comes to elections?
Thank you, Dennis. Yet again, we're here to talk about our country's politics and problems. So, elections, it's a good question. Elections are an element of a free society, a democratic expression. So, an exemplification of how free a society is, and that the people under a democracy have the free will to exercise agency, exercise their citizenship right, by sending a representative to represent them, because it's an elect. That's why it is a representative democracy. Everybody can go to the executive mansion, the White House, to sit there and govern. And so you have to look among you and choose the best. And the way you get to that best is someone who aligns with some kind of institutional ideology or personal ideology that then can be held down to a plan. But before I move on to applying, elections, help citizens to make decisions, to elect high quality leaders to represent them, to exercise, as I said, their citizenship rights and responsibilities, because citizenship has obligations just as it has rights. And so as a citizen, you have the obligation and responsibility to participate in civic discourse, in civic dialogue, to elect people who will represent you and govern. Because, like, again, it's a representative democracy. So there are all kinds of elements in there. You have election can resolve conflicts. Election can lead to laws and policy options, depending on what vision a particular candidate espouses and they project, and citizens can participate in election for those reasons. In terms of plans, some call it a manifesto. So plans have several stages, as far as I know, in terms of electoral politics, right? You have institutional, if you're a part of a political party, electoral politics and campaigns, political party is an element of the electoral process. So typically, a candidate is aligned with a particular institution, a political party. The political party, like Cole indicated, right, typically will have some kind of ideological leaning. I believe that this is the way society ought to be governed, this country ought to be governed. So a particular individual then could align themselves with that ideology and draw a vision out of it. Vision that says, look, I have a better, clear, convincing idea for how to better this society, this country. And here's how I can do that. Typically, you have a vision for how you will govern when you become president or that leader. And then you have a vision for how you will run your campaign organization as a vehicle to deliver you to the power, to that authority, right? So that's called a vision of the campaign. And that has various elements. Some of them are very practical. So for example, you have you have people who work on political profile, demographic profile of this area, this district, this particular group of people. How do I understand them? Who are who are the sinners and sins and savables. We can talk about some of those later. Those who will support you no matter what. Those who will oppose you no matter what. And those who are swing, how do you allocate resources? So a plan ought to have vision, a plan and a component that helps you to understand the electorate, and a number of assumptions that you can unpack that helps you to win. And within the plan, you should have a strategy for how you tell the story. Your message is basically to the electorate. So there are a number of things in there that a plan should have. Some of it, as I said, should be linked to the vision for how you govern. Others should be linked to very practical elements as to how you actually win the office you're seeking, so that you can govern based on the vision that you're advancing to the citizenry.
And that's the next thing we come into. Having seen and Mr. Yonto, you want to add on the importance of having a plan, and what is the impact if you don't have a plan?
So it is important because I think, to a larger extent, when you have this general vision about the country and how to move it forward, it has to be based on a number of factors, right? You have to understand, um, again, the history. You have to understand the current dynamics, what the everyday people are talking about. It has to be based on a popular consensus, because that's how you gauge the society in itself, right? To understand what the methodology, what the people are thinking, what they feel, and what they're saying every day. You do that through maybe just simply by listening to radio or reading the newspaper or touring communities, or doing county tours, right? And once you are able to do that, you have a sense of, the general feel, a general pulse of the larger society and the people. Often, as we've seen through our history, most manifestos have been driven, deeply rooted into grassroots level of involvement, right? Whether it was the Common Sense Manifesto that gave birth to the idea of self-government in America, or it was the how you call it, the Little Red Book by Chairman Mao. These ideas are deeply rooted, in a set of class of people that are marginalized, that are oppressed by either the system, the elites or bourgeois. And so you want to mobilize them, you want to organize them, you want to inspire them into action, to lead not necessarily a revolution, but to lead a kind of conscious movement that lead to the transformation of their life. So the core of it has to be transformational. And to a larger extent, I think we have not seen much from most of our political leaders and presidential candidates in Liberia.
And why is that?
Again, it goes back to the history, right? The motivation beyond why people form even political institutions. Right? A lot of them has been based on the individual as opposed to the system and institution. And so, to a larger extent, you find people following individuals and not ideas. And there's no governing philosophy around that.
And that's why this show tonight is very important. I when we were producing the show, I struggled between kind of discussing the current issue, because there are a lot of current issues out there. Almost everybody is talking about it. But these current issues are rooted in what we are talking today. So if we are not electing the right kind of leaders, if we are not driven, if our politics is not driven by ideas, by ideology, and so every day we're going to be like King Solomon said, chasing the wind. Call. Somebody may say that plan will eat. What you say to that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have to plan. You have to plan the future or you won't eat. Right? If you don't plan for tomorrow, you won't eat. So you will end up being a beggar. You'll end up depending on those who planned better than you did. So yes, the answer to that question, if somebody asks that question, the answer is yes. If you plan your farm, if you don't know that you need to grow rice for next season, you will not have rice next season. You'll be begging the people who plant, and they will have control of you. He who feeds you controls you. If I were to be a politician, which will never happen. But if I were a politician, one of the things that I would do is articulate very clearly what the challenges are in the country. That is a failure of all the politicians. They don't understand, or at least they don't articulate an understanding of what the situation is in Liberia and how we got to where we are. And I repeat this because it's important. If you don't study a problem, if you don't understand a problem, you will not be able to solve it. This is a mathematical, scientific, it's just a fact of life. So just coming out and shouting cliches, I mean, if you listen to Liberian politicians, the only reason Liberia is suffering is because of what they call corruption. And even the corruption they describe is vague. They think corruption just means theft, right? So if the people stop stealing, our problems will be fine. So I'm going to take office, I'll stop people from stealing. I wish it was that simple. The problem is understanding, why are people stealing? Why is this even a thing? So corruption is a symptom of a greater problem. What is the greater problem? What is it that has become a culture that has lost responsibility and self-respect, self-determination, the dignity of citizenship, the dignity of making choices that have positive outcomes? Why is that missing? So a politician in a circumstance like we're in Liberia is responsible to stand up in front of the citizens and let the citizens know, look, I know why we have degenerated into a society that celebrates rogues. It's because our self-esteem is broken. So I am going to remind you all of our greatness as a people. I'm going to motivate you on an emotional and intellectual level so that you can rise to the occasion and save yourselves and save your own country. This is a responsibility of citizens. And that is what democracy is about. But instead, they perpetuate the low self-esteem of the citizens by presenting themselves as a solution and not letting the citizens know that they, in fact, are the solution in a democracy. And that their only role as leaders is to motivate these citizens and bring the best out of them. I've not heard anyone do that. It's always, I'm better than you. I'm better than everyone else. Elect me, I'm richer, I'm wiser, whatever it is. Narcissism doesn't allow for one to bring the best out of others. It focuses on themselves and what they can do. And it is a lie. There is no one person that can solve anything. It is a lie. So if you don't stand up and remind the citizens that in a democracy, they are the change that they see. If you don't do that, you have already failed. And this is the reason I don't support any of the presidential candidates, because I have not been motivated. They have not lit my fire. It's like, I'm not, they haven't given me anything to show me that they can lead me. If you cannot, spark fire in me to believe in you, you're not able to lead me. You can't lead the country. So that's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for some miracle to happen, Dennis. Maybe between now and the next few months, somebody's going to really, pull that out of me. I'm going to say, wow, this is the guy or this is the woman. I haven't seen it.
And I can assure you, miracles still do happen.
It would take real divine intervention. maybe Dolake will run for president.
Mr. Salif, and that's the thing. You advise people on elections. So this whole idea of plans, I see how all of you are talking about how good a plan is. But if I must win elections and the voters are not asking me for a plan, why do I need to waste my time? And that's going to take away time. The time I'm putting in to be doing plans, I could be doing something else, getting the voters to vote for me. So if you're advising someone in Liberia based on what you know so far, do candidates need a plan? Because they want to win, and exactly what's going to get them to win, that's what they need to do.
Of course, yes. Candidates do need plans to win everywhere, anywhere, regardless of the context and how we perceive the voters. Liberian voters are asking for plans. Who say they're not asking for plans? Of course, historically, our politics has been, individualized personality politics, no institutionalism. They mimic political parties and political institutions in other countries, other contexts, but they don't engage in institutionalism. We know that. We also know that people believe because they take resources and they give crumbs to people, and therefore our people are oppressed and impoverished, and then they run after these politicians, sing up, the praise, sing them. Therefore, they don't need plans. They do need plans. Because the plan has various components. For instance, you need to understand how much resources it takes to run the campaign. You need to understand, how am I going to win in Nimba County? Who are the voters in Nimba County? Who are the voters in Montserrado County? Is a plan that does that. How much resources? The key components of a campaign plan. One of them is finance, resources, and time. So how much time do I have to do what, right? As we were joking earlier, I talked about their sins, their sinners and savables, right? That those who are diehard supporters of a candidate, no matter what that candidate does, they can die for that candidate, they will vote for you. There are those who are the sinners against you. They will never vote for you. I don't care. Reproduce whatever they have lost their lives. You give them, they won't vote for you. And the savables are those in America we call swing voters, right? Those are issues voters who are waiting for you to convince them. So you show them the contrast. We do have these in Liberia. That here's Cole who says, you haven't lit my fire. You haven't convinced me, right? And so she's a savable. You mean she can swing in anybody's way, or who has the message that she's looking for. So everybody needs a plan. You need to know how to manage your people that are running your campaign. You need a campaign organization. You do need money. You need to manage your time. All of those are components of a good campaign plan.
Yeah, I was talking more about what you're going to do when you win. That plan.
Oh no, okay. So that is the vision for governance. Now we're talking about after you have won the election, right? That's
Because
what you're
that's something you
asking.
got to tell them that they're going to
Yeah, that
happen.
okay. So let's unpack it then. Dennis, in electoral politics, there's what's called message and messaging. Okay, so in order to have a message, you have to have a plan that has various components, and then you try to figure out, understand your demographics, your voters, and craft messages for them. Stump speeches, there's what's called earned media, paid media. You got to figure out how to reach out to your voters, to mobilize, to convince them. The way you do that is through messaging. What is your message, right? Typically, we have you have some kind of theme about a particular politician that we know. We know there's a politician who says "Bill Liberia," what's that? Bill think Liberia, something like that. Another one says you can't keep doing the same thing over and over and get different results. These are themes and slogans, right? Out of that, they're really layering out messages for the voters. They're layering out messages for the constituents. So yes, you have to have something to tell people that motivates them, that inspires them, that gives them hope that should they vote for you, should they trust you, you are better than the other person. You have to demonstrate that contrast. And the way you do that, you're doing that through messaging. And as I said, the messaging comes from the plan of your political organization that leads you there. So you haven't won yet. You have to have message, and you have to know how to deliver the message. So have the right messenger, have the right message, and the right vehicle is the plan to deliver you to the office you seek.
Mr. Delake, so almost every candidate has a problem, identify a problem that they are trying to solve. They will talk about corruption, they will talk about the economy, they will talk about agriculture, they will talk about healthcare. This is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to tell me, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know you support a political candidate. Tell me the plan of your candidate that attracted you, and or you can first I've asked all the questions. You can respond to that question, also those questions also, and then tell me, okay, this is what is attracting me to this politician. This is specifically what is in their plan that I think makes sense to me.
Oh, thank you, Dennis. Firstly, let me speak to the previous
Yeah.
question because it's quite important. And I was asking a question about whether Liberia as a country and its political party has been institutionalized after 175 years. Probably will give us an inclination as to what we are talking about playing and following countries or political institutions that have had layout planned over a period of time. And plans, like we all have said, is a clear political position that one a political party will use as a campaign tool to appeal to the general public, and, for the ultimate outcome of the public following what that plan is. So there are some hiccups and some challenges that I think are responsible. Take for instance, we have an unsophisticated society. I would not want to say uneducated to try to be condescending, but a society that is ill-informed or not informed or resist information. And so we also have a constitution that tells us that Article 10 says all everywhere, every learning institution in the Republic of Liberia should be able to teach our constitution so that people know their rights and its limitation, which is a civil duty that brings people to consciousness as to how to follow and to focus attention on this thing that we are discussing called plan. That aspect is hugely missing within the very political system that we are talking about how we want to educate people about plan.
And,
And
and,
so,
and Jonathan, let me interrupt. Are politicians taking advantage of that? That specific thing that you say is lacking.
so those are the number of issues that have swayed politician attention from the focus of plan. So they just take education, you take corruption on the other hand, you take because the whole system is almost massive. So you are almost like confused. But let me speak about myself and why led me to be part of the institution that I'm part of. Fortunately for you, I am, or unfortunately for you, I am not just a follower of Mr. Cummings. I am a founding member of the Alternative National Congress, an incorporator of that institution, and we began on the 14th that the United Party has spent, well, closing up on her 12 years, especially 2012 when I just got that 12 years. We also saw a vision, so to say, that the CDC that were presumed to be the more stronger opposition political party never had the mechanism. So we came into the political process as an in-between to provide leadership on all of the different counts, but primarily was on providing government that governs prudently, government that governs by the will of the people, government that will bring about everybody participatory process. So to lay it out in just split seconds, we began the process not as the usual political party process. If you follow the political party process of Edward Bien Kesali, It was a small group of people that sat in small cubicle, and you could determine a political leader and stand up and chairman right away. Instead, we moved into community and solicit the views of the community members as to what was happening at the time and how do we fix it. And those suggestions made up what we call the ANC today. And that is why you see today in the ANC, we started including disabled, we started including elder council, and started making up, listening to the views of people. So I cannot say that I was led. I think Mr. Cummings just interspersed the process, but I was already a member of the ANC when Mr. Cummings joined the ANC. And that is what I can say.
All right. There's so much to unpack. So let me leave it at that. We'll come back to that. Let me go to Call and say,
Oh, I know what go laughing anyway.
Call, how are plans generated? You know, you talked about the ideology before, but let's say I'm going to be president. I want to be president, and I want to put forward a plan that will attract the people. How do I go about forming that plan? And I have a story to tell after you answer.
So having served as a strategist in the gubernatorial race, having served as a strategist for U.S. Congress, a U.S. congressman who is a good, lifelong friend of mine, former U.S. congressman, who's no longer a congressman, but the very first thing that people do, besides being part of a political party that has a belief system that they ascribe to, is they conduct research. They look at data, statistical data, demographic data. They look at information. And majority of the way that you determine what you're going to do is by analyzing information. And you need analysts, you need statisticians, you need professional people who understand how to study a demographic, how to study problems, how to really map out what is needed. The very first thing that should be happening in Liberia is there should be a think tank, a group of people who are actually capable of conducting the research necessary to advise the direction of their party and the direction of the potential leaders that they're going to put forward as candidates. I don't see that happening, but that is the very first thing. You need information. And, you know, it's funny. They have this thing, you know, that CBP did, and I mocked it. I mocked it, Dolake as a witness. I mocked this thing the very first time I heard them say they were doing a voter perception survey. I said, that's not what that means. That is not what that means. Voter perception survey is not about, do you recognize this person's name? That is not what that is. A voter perception survey is a research tool for gathering very complex data. So you want to know what people's concerns are, what their interests are. Are they able to even make it to the polling place? Are they aware of when they need to vote? Are they aware of I mean, it's a wide range of things. Under no circumstance do you use a voter perception survey to select a candidate. So they were just using terms that they were just making stuff up, you know, on the fly. You know, that's how little respect they have for the Liberian people. So they were this pretentious, pompous, you know, misguided, inexperienced group of people put forth on the table to make a decision. Here's Dolake talking about people sitting in one cubicle and making decisions. Dolake, I beg you, don't make me expose the CPP any worse than I've already done. You know, no one that participated in the coalition political party should wash their mouth on Edward Kessley. Those men did not conduct themselves in the manner in which I see people doing today. They were young. They were young in the early 80s. You know, we are adults. We're not children. These men in the 80s, some of them were younger than we are now, right? And we sitting down here trying to mock them and say they sat at one cubicle. Do you understand the global connections that these people made? How much research they did before they even made an attempt at creating a political party? They didn't just pull this out of their left ear. There was work, and they wrote extensively on their concerns about the country, where they wanted to see it go. It wasn't just simple, oh, we want to see Native people in power. It was about the direction of the country, the protection of our economic sovereignty. I have not even heard a single political candidate, whether it be at any level, for the House, for the Senate, for the presidency, articulate economic sovereignty. We have just accepted that we should never be economically sovereign, that we are a beggar nation. I mean, this is the kind of, listen, Dennis, on July 26, 2022, our nation's Independence Day, the messaging that came out of all of the opposition leaders and the sitting president was identical. You know what they all said? Except maybe one person said it more articulately than the other, but they all had the same message. The message was this: America, thank you for giving us freedom, the end. They literally all said that. Go back and read what Mr. Cummings said, go back and read what Joseph Boykai said, go back and listen to George Weah. They all agree exactly that America gave Liberia freedom. They don't even understand that they are running to head a country, and Weah is a sitting president of a country. They made no mention of Hillary Teague. They made no mention of Elijah Johnson. They made no mention of the people that fought for sovereignty for this country. Nowhere on the planet Earth does anyone talk about their independence and ascribe and attribute it to a different country, because they don't know anything about Liberia. They just want to be president. It was an outrage, and nobody was disturbed by this, maybe except me, because I didn't hear any of the talking heads complain. It shocked me out. Look, I had to go and sit down and drink a bottle of water. I look at my husband. I said, my God, these people just literally all they said the same thing on Independence Day. They said, thank you, America, for giving us freedom. Do those look like people that are ready to leave a sovereign country into prosperity, into progress? These are the people we're supposed to be supporting and say, yeah, we're beating drum behind you. You be president because you were this, you were that. I have no patience for that. Our people deserve better. They deserve better. Liberia deserves better. I deserve better. All of you on this panel deserve that basic respect, that if someone wants to lead you, they should understand the place that they're trying to lead.
Thank you. The story is told of a group of maybe NGOs and some Liberians that went to Grand Cru County and identified a problem. The problem they identified was, and this was before the war, so people like Yonton, they can't talk about it. So they identified a problem that the people were drinking a very dirty water. So they crafted a very good plan, and that was to build a hand pump in the center of the city. So they built a hand pump in the center of the town. After some time, nobody was using it. They started going back to the creek, and they were surprised as to why. Only to find out that they have not engaged the people, they have not asked them, they crafted that plan and executed it, implemented it. They did not understand that the people were using the water side for more reasons than just going to get water. Mr. Yonton, when it comes to your party or the people you support, is it how they craft their plan, or do they have a plan?
Yes,
they like these good guys that went to Grand Cru and just formed this? And it still goes in line with the question that I asked, called how do people come up with plans? Or how the people that you support in Liberia come up with the plans that they have now? And we'll come to their plan later.
So yes, to do. Before I answer your question, let me just speak agenda a little bit. In 1985, the geopolitical dynamics across our region, Africa, was not just a wave of independence, but it was witnessing how these new independent nations were moving from one-party democracy to multi-party democracy. In 1985 also, there on the domestic front, there was a lot of pressure on the government on the one-party system that needed to open up to allow people like you who formed your party in 2012 that chance to espouse your vision and your ideology. Also in 1985, America was at the center of Cold War, right? Which greatly impacted everything that was happening on the domestic front. So people like Edward B. and Cassidy, the likes of Barker Matthew, the likes of Tukpan and Tipote, play a greater role in our history than we can possibly imagine. And it is for us patriots to honor the sacrifices that they made for us that we today enjoy. So I think that was a little, you know, out of character to label people like B and Cassidy the way you label them. I just wanted to strike that. Um, on my party plan, it is important that um, it is important to know that Joseph Walker, right, of whom I support today, has been around. He's well known not just for serving, 25 active years in government, but also
That numbers keep going up and down.
yeah, the other people, the people on the other side say 42 years. But there were period in between, right? So it was not just
Oh, okay.
there. There were a period in between, but they're counting from the day he got his first government job to the day he left it. He's well known, he's well versed, right? When it comes to agriculture, he understands. He's seen different phases. He has articulated many times his agricultural plan for the country. Um, there was a famous question asked in one of the many interviews whether he's thinking about bringing back the LPMC. He said we don't need it because they're changing times, right? The original mandate of the LPMC at the time is different from what the people need now. What do we have at the moment? We have these concessionaire companies going to Liberia, the Sam Daby, the Equatorial Palm Oil, and they are involved in massive industrial farming, right? In a way that they are processing these things and taking it away from Liberia. Even the issue of land has not been addressed for the common people where concession companies are operating. We see in the Western cluster what happened over time, and the people are demanding to get benefit from the shared resources. We have to move our country in a direction where we are self-sufficient. And this is what Joseph Barker wants to do, right? He's very clear and articulate about his agricultural plan. But now we cannot do that when we do not have roads. So we're very clear. It's a critical infrastructure piece that needs to happen. Okay. On top of agriculture and rural, he talks about education. I'm very passionate about education. And the reason is simple. Well, 14 years of civil war wasted my time. I had additional 10 years of that 14 years after the Civil War. When I graduated from high school, I could not go to college because I just did not have the means to do it. There are thousands of young people all across Liberia today that are out of school, and the data are there. Check the enrollment numbers. It has dropped significantly in the last 5 years. All right, and even those who are graduating from schools today are not meeting up with the demand of the economy. If there's one, in fact, because we have zero investment in the last 5 years in terms of foreign direct investment. So they are not meeting up to that demand, right? So our schools are putting out graduates that the economy is not asking for. Okay, so you have more accountants, more managers, more sociologists graduating. We have an economy based on the extractive industry. I think our focus should be in the sciences, right? So you disaggregate the different end users of the educational policy, right? Which by and large are mainly young people. So you want to move them in different directions, right? Joseph Waga has clearly said that even people that are graduating today from colleges, we need to have a program for them that will send them back to get re-educated, retrained in specialized area so that they are able to be absorbed by the economy. That's how we solve the problems of joblessness among our graduates and our young people. Bulk of all of the policy tied towards a transformative means through which we can do it. To solve corruption, if you have more of the population of the people becoming enlightened, reading without listening to radio and taking firsthand information from journalists who are not even trained to disseminate information in a way that the people can consume, and are conducting their own research. So what does LDCC report today? All right. Or what is GSC report on this certain ministry, right? And the people themselves are getting involved in the everyday conversation on corruption and demanding new answers. You form a broad-based mass movement that lead change in a way that you want to see it. And Joseph Warga has said clearly that the involvement of all Liberians are going to be part of this process. We're going to have an inclusive, participatory process in which Liberians take ownership of not just the economy, but take ownership of their country. And that's the direction we want to move Liberia, in that fundamentally new direction where Liberians can begin to see the change and the impact of their votes and the kind of leadership that brings experience and change thereof.
Thank you. Is that written anywhere?
Yeah, you're going to see the Irish plan. We're in the concluding stage of it. As early as next year, it's going to be up. People have access, physical access to it, physical location to to go and print it out if you using the internet and all that stuff, so that you read the plan and contextualize the plan and have national conversation around it, the different pillars.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. We are discussing plans. What is in a plan? Why should candidates have written plans? Mr. Salif, let me come to you. Should these plans that we talk about, or the platform or the manifesto, or how the candidate is going to solve our problem, should it be written down for us to read? And how soon or how late should that happen? And I'm asking you this because normally, like in the United States, the party will come together and have their platform and will read it. But prior to that, what is it that we have? In Liberia campaign, I don't know why they did it that way, but campaign is like 1 year. And so people are waiting for that 1 year to maybe roll out their plans. Talk to me about that. Is that what we should be looking for? Is that how it should be? Or prior to that, should it be also telling us and writing down, okay, you want me to vote for you? Why you want me to vote for you? What are you going to do for me? What are you going to do for your country? What is your vision for the country? Should we have that written down or no?
Well, of course, we should have it written down. Any plan that is not written down is no plan, period. If it's not written down, it's not a plan. A manifesto of a political institution must be well known, well documented, well researched, well disseminated. It should be part of the civic life, the civic engagement of the people. Earlier on, I mentioned the stages of what we're calling plan manifesto. We're having different nomenclature here. If you are a political party, you don't have to worry about somebody stealing your ideas, because it's rooted in an ideology, in a political belief, in a belief of a type of a direction or way that the country should govern. If you are, say, a far right or central right, or if you are left wing, whatever, you have to have some kind of ideology and explain that based on the context, right? So that people know. Individuals who are running then on a ticket of a particular political party will peel off of that because they believe in that ideology. Then they have a vision, right? Out of that vision, you craft a plan, you craft a strategy, you craft your message. And with the message, you have tactics as to how you deliver that message to which audience. After having done your research, your demographic profile of the district, your counties, and so forth and so on. So yes, at all of these stages, the plan must be written. Okay. The reason why people wait and release their plans just a week or so before the election is because of that lack of institutionalism that I talked about earlier. Because if the Unity Party releases its plan today, they're worried that maybe ANC, then Jonathan will pick it up and say, okay, we too, we're for roles. We too, we're for this way of doing education. We too, we're for this way of doing agriculture. I've heard that argument before. People said to me, well, why do you expect us to release our ideas and these people will steal it? That's because these are not systematized ideas. These are not rooted in fundamental institutionalism. That's number one. How soon? the citizens have the right, in order to exercise their citizenship obligation, to know the ins and outs of a particular political organization, and therefore, by extension, a particular candidate that's affiliated or running under the banner of this particular political organization. Citizens should have a good sense of what does the Unity Party stand for? What does the ANC stand for? What is it about? The CDC, this whole cliche, this thing about pro-poor, what does that really even mean? Okay. Is that pro-poor sort of a political ideology? If it is, what are the exemplification of that, the impact of the pro-poor ideology on the people? It has to be written, not only written, but it also has to be marketed. It has to be promoted in every civic avenue as possible. So yes, if in fact that's if you did a political campaign course of any kind, they tell you if a plan is not written, it's no plan.
Yeah. They say if you don't know where you are going, any road can take you there.
Well, sometimes any road takes you in the wrong direction,
Right.
and you're going the wrong direction for good.
So talking about plan, it's time to let's put some face to this, right? We have political parties, at least four main ones that are in contention for the presidency. We have the current president who was running on the PAPD, who ran on the PAPD. And so some of the importance of having a plan is we can look at something, and then during your administration, we have something to hold you by, right? We can look at the PAPD and compare that with the accomplishment of the current president, and then we can tell if they have achieved what they set forth to achieve. Simple as that. So if you don't have a plan, or if you don't have anything written down, it means you can do anything and we have nothing to hold you by. So that's one reason. So let's take a look at some of the plans of the parties that are running for the presidency. So currently, the current president has the PAPD that they are using to govern. Even though we didn't I think when they ran 2011, they had something there. I'm not sure if that's what they ran on 2017.
Dennis,
Yeah.
sorry, let me interject. The PAPD is not a plan on which the candidate ran or is
Right.
running. The
Yeah,
PAPD is after the fact.
Yes,
Your
after.
development plan after you've won office. Now like I said, you have to come up with a plan to govern the country, right?
Right.
That's what we know the PAPD to be.
That is correct. That is correct. They had something that was written 2011 that was on their website, but that was not what they ran on 2017. So let's look at the current slew of candidates, what they have. For Councillor Tiawon Gonglo, he has the 10-point plan, and that's what he's using. And part of that, we read, says there will be zero tolerance for corruption under a Gonglo government. Within the first 100 days, a thorough review of all audit reports done by the GACC will be carried out. That plan continues. The review will determine prosecutions and make recommendations on those that may be statute barred. Our administration will commission routine audits, including lifestyle audits of all public servants, and on and on and on. And then we come to Mr. Cummings. His plan, if you visit a website, because every time you ask, they say, go on our website. The website says, our government and its officials will be held to account. We will leverage innovative technologies that automate some government processes, creating efficiency, transparency, and cutting waste. By tackling corruption and ending wasteful spending, Labrador will realize a more efficient and effective government, one that works for all Liberians, and on and on and on. When it comes to Mr. Boaka, we've heard arrest, agriculture, rules, education, which was almost like an afterthought, sanitation, and what? Tourism, arrest. Let's look at these plans. Looking at those plans, Carl, or what I've just given you a gist of them, just one line, or maybe I don't know if you had an opportunity, do they pass the litmus test of what a plan or a vision should look like, or a platform, or anything close?
It does. None of those things meet my standard. So I think these are obvious things. Are we saying? I mean, these are government functions. How can you run on a campaign that's articulating the actual function of a government? Basically, what they're saying is, we're going to be the government, vote for us. I mean, what is that? Like, you know, oh, we're going to enforce laws, we're going to prosecute criminals, we're going to, you know, this is government's function. That's what government's supposed to do. We're in it. This is what I'm talking about, not really being practical. Right now, Liberia is in an emergency situation. We do not produce our staple food. We don't produce our starch staple. And I hear people talking about, oh, we got to build roads. And I had this when I was working in government before, and the minister traveled, and I was sitting as a proxy at the cabinet meeting and talking more than I should have. And they were talking about the whole long-term plan and the Lofa Road. And I said, you know, when I served when I was working through UNDP and I served at the Land Authority, the Montserrado County administration has enough arable land to feed the entire country. And I'm talking about land that's owned by the country. So when you don't understand Liberia, you don't even study the country, you won't even understand how some of these things are not that complicated. Yes, we should build roads, but we need a quick impact project. Take account of the land that you already have in close proximity to the urban areas that you can grow rice on. Quick impact, use what you have. You want to tell me we don't have roads in Montserrado County going to Tori? That whole place, most of that land belongs to the Montserrado County administration. A lot of land belongs to, I mean, the amount of land that the Montserrado County administration owns, if properly utilized for agriculture, can feed the entire country. If we utilize it efficiently and effectively like they do in the United States, we'd have enough food to feed Liberia, I mean, the entire country, and even export it. So we are talking about things, long-term plans to build roads. We're not talking about quick impact projects to feed people in 12 months, which is possible. We're not talking about motivating urban gardens. You've got all these idle hands sitting around. The first problem is the government is too big. That's another thing nobody's talking about. You want to reduce wasteful spending? Close these redundant institutions that have overlapping functions that were created just to give people jobs, and divert that energy into quick impact agricultural projects where you can train farmers and while in the process of training, produce food. This is an emergency. This is an emergency. If you don't even have food sovereignty before you talk about economic sovereignty, you don't even have the ability to produce your own starch staple. That should be at the forefront of everyone's minds. The other thing is, we're talking about processes of automation, which is brilliant. I mean, that's what happens everywhere else in the world. We've been talking about this a long time to try to be able to track things, and you know, you have automated systems, you can track theft and discrepancies. You know what you can't track with automation? Bribery and kickbacks. And bribery is the apex of corruption. Kickbacks and procurement fraud are the apex of corruption. So automation and all of this stuff isn't going to solve that. Nobody's addressing the fact that most of the corruption that occurs in Liberia is through procurement fraud, which is made to look legal because you go through the PPCC process, but everybody shakes hands in some dark room and says, we're going to follow the line, we're going to dot our I's and cross our T's, but the outcome is going to be this. And we'll all get kickbacks, we'll all eat money at the end. That can't be tracked through automated electronic systems. It just can't. And the other thing that can't be tracked is the bribery. That is the real issue. Any corporation comes in, they're bribing the legislature, they're bribing appointed officials. The bribery is the apex of corruption. Even in the political campaign process, people are bribing people so they can be put on campaign tickets. I want to run in this place, here's some money. Okay, you come with your cash, violence, we'll put you on our party ticket. That is what the apex of corruption in Liberia is. And all respect to Councilor Gunglo and everyone else, Yes, you're supposed to prosecute criminals. That is a function of government. That's not a campaign plan. That's the least of our expectations of a government. And that's not something to campaign on. But you can't even talk about what the apex of the actual corruption is. Mr. Cummings, Mr. Boycott, Mr. Gungo. The apex is the bribery. The apex is the procurement fraud. And that is not going to be tracked through automation. It is more difficult to address. The second thing is re-education. One of the biggest issues that I found when I worked in government is that people don't even know, in America here, let me just say this. In America here, you have constant reminders and retraining to teach people about bribery, anti-bribery, anti-corruption training. If you're in a position of trust, if you work for government, they're constantly making you take classes because it's not natural always that people understand right or wrong or that slippery slope of corruption. We should be talking about, one of the things the Anti-Corruption Commission should be doing is to make government officials constantly take courses to remind them, hey, this is wrong, this is wrong. And you have to retrain the thinking and the mindset of the people. This society allows so many things to happen and they justify it. You've got students paying bribes and even using their bodies to get grades. Corruption is something that is horrific, that cannot just be cured with just saying we're going to prosecute people or let me just finish my thought, please. We're going to prosecute people or we're going to, what was the other thing? It can't only be cured. That's just part of it. Re-education is the biggest thing that I would like to hear leaders say that I don't hear them saying.
Thank you. And more of, I don't hear much of prevention. Mr. Laraman Yanton, if you can sit up because I want to see this. Oh, right. So let me come to you and quickly. At this time with Mr. Bwaka, for instance, not having a plan written down, especially when he's running for the second time in the last 6 years, isn't that little kind of, I don't want to say embarrassing? Isn't that, I mean, should we be talking about that right now, that he doesn't have anything written down except for an acronym, almost like a wish list?
I don't think the Unity Party in 1997 used the platform that it used in 1985. They are changing times. People modify their vision, they modify their plan. Okay, so I don't think you expect Parker to use what he used in 2017. In 2017,
he still got roles in there.
Yeah, he still got roles, but they are changing times, right? Mm-hmm. So the plan has to reflect the changes in time, right?
Yeah, like what is taking this long? Why is it taking a long time to get it down so that we can read?
Well, we're not doing quick impact project with the vision we share for the country, right? It has to be empirical. It has to be based on hemostatic. It has to be done on the understanding of what's happening across the country. And that's fair enough. But I'd like to pick up on Kowu a little bit. Kowu is making us understand that the function of government should not be on the ballot, should not be aspired by any candidate. And when people run for public office, they try to analyze what the current government structure is, what we have at the moment as a government, what the functions are, and what they are failing to do. So in 2008, when Barack Obama ran for president, he said he will cut taxes. He will, he will ensure that taxes are cut for the middle class. That's a function of government. But was George Bush doing it? No. So people run based on the current reality, the prevailing reality of the moment. In Liberia, what have our people been subjected to over time as the result of the lack of government's function to deliver? You have a whole laundry list of different things. So I don't think it's wrong for someone to tell you that we'll fight corruption. It's not wrong. Our people are poor. Corruption, corrupt officials are robbing the people every single day, and we need to find solution to that, and it has to be part of the plan because that's what lacking in the society today. If you think every official that gets into government are following and playing by the rules, will have Liberia wouldn't be a middle class country today. It will. You have on the books, right? Even during the early time, you have this law what's the law called? It's slipping all of my mind, right? But where the government official declare the access once before coming into government, right?
Code of conduct.
The code of conduct.
Right. Is it been followed? No. That's one of the basic way in which we can track the access and earning of our government officials, right? Both elected and appointed. It's not been followed. So if someone is clearly coming out with a clear plan on the how, for me, the how matters more than what you say. If you say you're going to fight corruption, how are you going to fight corruption? Because it has been a cancer. It is tied to the culture of impunity, and I think we have to find solutions. So it has to be part of the plan. It has to be on the ballot.
And you say cutting taxes is part of the function of the government? I didn't get that clear. You say
Yes, what the function? What is the function of government? You know, it's the fundamental question we have to ask. The government exists to ensure that it creates an conducive environment for the people livelihood to to strive, right? So if one government, like I will give you the case of Obama in 2008, but you look at what is now working in government and do a laundry list of what is not working and try to find solutions given what is not working. You talk about the PAPD. On page 27 of the PAPD, this government, quote unquote, told the Liberian people, all of us, that they will establish an agricultural bank. It's been 5 years. Have they? No. Right? On the pillar, the second pillar of the PAPD talks about how this glorious machination of removing Liberia from where it is to a middle income country. How are they going to do that? Create 1 million jobs for young people. Have we done that? No. So the government is dysfunctional in itself.
right.
So we identify all of those different dysfunctions, and then we carve it into a national vision, a national plan that helps the country to move forward.
And Mr. Yonton, that's why it's so surprising that Mr. Bwaka has not been able to come up with a plan. And we have less than 12 months to election.
No,
We
but
don't have anything we can read.
that is if you say that is an injustice to say he have not been able to come up with a plan. We cannot use the plan. We cannot use the Bwaka campaign platform of 2017. That is clear.
No, I know. I mean, now, what is the plan for 2023?
It's under construction. It's under construction, and it will be released as soon as possible. But you already have a gist of what's going to be in the plan, right?
So
You have
what
a
is really attracting people to Mr. Bwaka without any plan? They say his personality or because he lost the last election?
But there are a number of things that attract people to politicians in any given election.
Thank you. So it means
The plan is a very important. The plan is a very important part of that. The vision that the person has and aspires for the country
Right.
is a very important part of
And
that.
that vision is not written anywhere.
But so the vision is almost like a policy debate, right? The policy can be spoken, it can be written.
Okay.
The vision for your country is first the construct. So you first, conceptualize it, and then you express it, and then you move into, building the case, which is going through the process of documenting the different things, going through empirical research, and ensuring that you come up with a strong plan, a strong platform that appeals to the everyday reality of the people. And that's a very strong word that I must underscore, the everyday reality of the people. What are the people talking about? What do they want? Okay, well, the concerns that Liberians expressed in 2005 may not necessarily be some of the concerns that they have in 2023, all right, a year from now, right? You have a pool in terms of demographic, you have a pool of young voters, people who were born between 2000 and 2002 will be voting for the first time in a lifetime in a major election in 2023. What do you do? What do you do about those people? What are the appetite? What are driving some of the things that motivate them? So you have to capture all of that into a solid plan, and it cannot be done overnight. You need experts, subject matter experts in different areas.
To now, anyway, thank you. Yeah. Is that what is? Let me go to Mr. Dulake, and I will put some of Mr. The ANC vision for the next 6 years include achieving food security. Liberia will be able to feed its citizens, right? And the future of our country will we can accomplish this by doubling domestic rice production within 2 years and reducing the price of rice by 25%. And a continued priority includes food production to become self-sufficient, double domestic rice production in 2 years, and all that, right? Do you see those? Do you see like the how, or is it similar to a Santa Claus list?
Thank you, Dennis.
Hmm.
But as we move along these new questions, it is very important, since this platform is an information tool to our people, to also provide education as we answer a set of questions along the way. When I began on this show, I stated clearly as to whether the Liberian political party system had been institutionalized, and we all agreed that it had not been institutionalized. Our human development index clearly demonstrates between 2016 to 2021, the difference is 178 ranking to 177. I do not know as to whether we have performed out of 191 countries. So we are far below. Another thing that I want to quickly mention, when my sister called talk about the VPS, it was meant to inform the delegates about governance issue, about corruption issue, about different lines of issue, so that they make that decision for the CPP process. That was what CPP referred to as the VPS. Who is good at corruption? Who is good at, who can better solve the issue of agriculture? Who can better solve the issue of, those were the elements of things. But let me come to
Dennis, can I just make a very quick objection? Because I mean, on the premise of my brother, he said this platform is used to inform the people, and I think when you're providing misinformation, it's good that we also help to correct some of the wrong information you're putting out there. We all know the CPP framework and how it was carved, because my party was a part of that exercise. There were three stages to which anyone vying for the presidency could go through to win the standard bearership of the CPP. All right. So the first was consensus, and the second was through the VPS. So at no point the VPS, on the operationalized context with which it was used in the framework document, talk about doing a sampling of how the people feel about corruption or something. It was clearly about the pathway to the standard bearership, and I thought it is important to mention that so that you don't misinform the public.
And the VPS was not supposed to be used, right? It was just for information purpose or something like that, right?
Yes.
Hmm. Go ahead, Jonathan.
look. I am a creature of the CPP formation. I'm one of the progenitor. When we decided, and I have to clear this out, when we decided to go to the primary process, the category that listed the VPS to inform the delegate was not to inform the delegate as the delegate taking the VPS or participating in the VPS, was to inform the general public who will make that input as to which of the candidates stand on particular issue, so that the delegates now will know that these candidates stand on this issue and they're going to make that informed decision at the primary. That was the exit. But call, we're not going into
No,
that.
I'm gonna come in, Dennis.
We're not going into that thing. I beg you. I don't want you.
No,
Yeah,
we're going
yeah,
into
yeah.
it because
The
Voltaire, you
VPS is being
You are
taken
contradicted
always going away
yourself.
from the CPP process, so that is not going into that
Dennis,
thing.
no, I've never been part of any CPP process. I condemned it from day
the
one.
focus of the
So
conversation.
I don't want the
let me
VPS
come
to
in,
take us
please.
away
Dennis,
from the
may I
discussion.
have 30 seconds?
Yeah, 30 seconds, please. I don't want us to take
Okay.
us away.
Zola Cat. I don't like dishonesty. And you're my own brother, but I don't like dishonesty. That voter perception survey was never about educating the public. It was a process in which they were going to find out what public perceptions were about candidates and use that in order to select candidates.
Right.
My statement was that is not what that is. That's not what that means. That's not what VP, a voter perception survey is not, well, it is now because Liberians have changed what that means, but typically that is not what that is utilized for. That was my statement. What I said was we had a bunch of novice, inexperienced people who have no idea what these terms mean. They have not worked on political campaigns. They do not have the background. They were not informed enough. They're just using jargon that they didn't fully understand, putting it to paper, and executing it incorrectly. That is what I said.
Thank you.
So that's just what I wanted to clarify, and I stand by that, and I can prove it. I can show you the survey questions that were on that VPS. Very embarrassing. I mean, you can take a 12th grade survey class, statistics class, and they write better survey questions than what were used by the CPP. And you were present when I mocked it. You were there when I mocked it, Dula Ken, and I knew for you.
For me, honestly.
Right.
So the VPS,
Mr. Dula Ken,
then as I move to every time they distract you, have
the
to
CPP is dead. Let us know.
dead.
No, the CPP not dead, or Dula Ken, and 200 heads.
There has been the 4 parties, but it's still there with the 2 parties, Liberty Party.
Right. So let's go to Mr.
1.5. Not 2 parties. 1.5.
Let's go to Mr. the ANC the plan.
I hope my colleagues will be quiet like I was, and they should not be agitated by my conversation. Because I know that's technique. The CPP tested, and I have to give this education. The CPP tested the VPS 2020. It was not a conclusive process. Like I said, it was a laundry list of issues. For the presidential candidacy, what was in the framework that we're developing were the issues that are listed. Governance, corruption, agriculture, those are the issues. So for someone to tell me that I'm lying about it, then I don't understand what is it about. But however, the Unity Party has departed, have parted ways because they could not go to the process. Let me face what we are talking about. We are talking about plans. We all on this platform admit to the low depth of lack of information, resistant to information, or people not willing to be educated. We all agreed about it. We all agree that our Constitution, Article 10, provides that it should be taught in all schools. We are all aware that it's not taught. People are not civic. People don't have the civic consciousness of what is going on around us. However,
therefore, the candidates should mislead them. Is that where you're going with this?
No.
Okay.
Therefore, the candidates will be dealing with competing priorities, which are the current lapses within the governance structure. What are those lapses? Lapse number 1 would name the issue of corruption. Mr. Cummings and the CPP or ANC have thought that the way to deal with corruption, to have a fast-track court that can deal with the issue of corruption, like in the instant case that we have lacking, where officials have been sanctioned and the president takes absolutely 0 step towards it. That is giving room for corruption. Creating jobs. How do you create jobs? And job, not just to create jobs, but to remove some of the irregularities that are creating bottlenecks or bureaucracy within the process. You go to Freeport, you got CTM. What is the essence? How does it benefit Liberia? Except for one person packet, clear some of these things out of the way. Go to education, and I'm not going into depth to talk about it, but these are things that, as I state on this platform, would appear in Mr. Cummings' full page of platform or the CPP platform. Education, for example. All of us, or many of us back home.
Mr. Dulaga, I hate to interrupt. Are you saying what is on the website now? Because that's not what you are speaking to, right?
What is on our website?
The website, that's different. What you are saying is what the full plan will look like, but right now
that's the talking point on the website. It's just a talking point.
What is on the website? Just what is there.
Okay.
It's what is
That's the
there.
second point. They
It's
don't.
available. It's available. But
Right,
it
but
was
what you are
easy
saying is not what is on the website. That's what I mean, right?
about corruption, combating corruption
Yeah.
is on the website.
No, corruption is
Is there
there,
fast
but
track script on the website?
there's
Reading
the
of
fast
the
track
fast
court is now on the
not on
website.
the website. I read the website, and
It's a
and,
fast.
and
Yeah,
No,
it just nomenclature. A special court, special
okay.
anti-court is on the website.
Go ahead.
then it's a mix champion.
No. Hold on. Ahmed has been waiting for long. So Dolake conclude if what is
Yeah,
if
you're
the
taking me
Cummings
back.
plan,
Yeah,
if the Cummings plan passes this litmus test of what a plan should be.
I'm not going to do that recitation thing at University of Liberia. I must follow in my own word and be able to say it. That's all I'm trying to do. So lastly, I was talking about the issue of education. Realistically, bulk of us back home during the course of the war, we were all moved to sociology, accounting, public administration, because that's how you are getting the NGO jobs. Many of the young people are not following the sciences. So Mr. Cummings has been moved towards that. And he's not just been moved towards it in weddings. He has spent hundreds of thousands on the AME University to the extent that he has been named, the graduate program has been named after him. He has moved to modeling a science and technology school. So it has become a dominating passion. Should he assume national leadership, those are areas that are going to be focused. He has contributed good bill of money to the Nima Community Engineering College. So these are things. But lastly, you talk about the story of, Jeff, you talk about the story of building hand pump where you can draw water. And it happens in our society. The NGO go to the town, they play their own play in Moravia and move to the community and build a hand pump around the society bush. The people can go there and take rusty. That is why I was premising my argument on how ANC formation came about. It was not to discount Mr. Bien Kesseli. That is why I said that we move into the community, solicited the view, and the lives of people are here to bear witness to that situation. God knows that we're moving in West Spring Valley and other communities.
Thank you. Let me bring in Admin, and then we open the lines for our callers to come in, read some comments. So, Admin, I mean, lot on the table now.
Yeah. To me, what I've been listening to is just it demonstrates the magnitude of the problem we have in the country. And I like to believe that all of these candidates that are running for office in Liberia in this circle, they're all decent Liberian citizens, and they all mean well for Liberia. However, the problems that the country has and that for which they're running to really address, I think is one that, in terms of just understanding the magnitude of the problem and how you plan for it, I think it's one that has chased all of them around. Now I listened to Mr. Yonton talk about President Obama in 2008. I mean, these are tax policies, right? Yes. Look, I'm not saying Don, if you have a system that's so rotten that the plan you have, the vision you have, is really how the government works. That's your focus. I think no one's saying, don't talk about how government works in your plan, because ultimately you have to govern. You have to tell your story about how you are governed, how well you are governed, right? That stands you apart. But you should be able to see beyond just governing. So if that's all we have, then we are in the hole. We have a problem. We're trying to extricate ourselves from the hole so that we can then begin to even see, to even see around us in the environment, right? So the Asian people have this pejorative analogy that they use often, that the frog in the well only sees the sky and the well environment. The frog is not able to appreciate the breadth of the rest of the world because this is in a hole, it's in a well, right? So we need to be able to see beyond. Okay, so we know corruption is a monstrous thing that has damaged and plundered the country and kept Liberia undeveloped, underdeveloped forever. somebody was talking about a human development index somewhere where we are. That if you can calculate the trajectory, like how many years it would take for Liberia to even get to the tail of a middle income country, it is not in our lifetime if we continue to crawl the way we are. So I think it really behooves everybody. Those of you who advise these politicians, you are on the staff, or you are advisors to them, you're some of the technical people to them. I think you can do better than this. That's all we're saying. We're saying Liberia is better than this, and Liberians are better than this. You have people who understand these things, who are, who are experts in different fields, and Liberia does not lack that. When I talk about people's problem in Liberia, doesn't mean that we don't have high quality people who can really help us understand our country, understand our problems, and craft a vision for how can we begin to address these problems, right? So, it's not enough to say, all right, so I'll build roads. No, roads is important. Education is important. Agriculture, of course, and everybody says that. We all know these things. Then Mr. Cummins, what I'm reading from the ANC, right? That, okay, make Liberia food sufficient. How? How are you going to do that? How are you going to fund that? Where are you getting the resources? Demonstrate to me that you understand Liberia's tax base. You can mobilize domestically our revenue. You can invite and attract foreign direct investment. You can address our export deficit that we have, our current national balance, national account problem that we have. Did you really understand those major macro issues that can drill down to the micro, that can drill down to creating the environment, the enabling environment for the private sector to thrive, to even begin to build and invite others in a secure way, so that you can show that our country is safe and secure. These are what we're talking about. There's some fundamental things that you ought to have in your plans, and tell us how you will fund it, how you will do it, and what it will lead to, the result. How will you know that you're doing the right thing? How is it measurable? Is it realistic? These are the kinds of things that we're trying to understand here, But of course, if you are in a party or with a candidate, you defend that position. Let's just let our guards down a little bit, try to understand what everybody is trying to do, and say that we all mean well for Liberia. Go back, go to the drawing table and retool. Because for me, honestly, I haven't seen any plan that convinces me that this is realistic, it is fundable, it can lead Liberia out of where it is.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This is Focus on Liberia. Of course, this is Tough Talking Thursday. We are discussing plans. What are their plans? What is in a plan? And at this time, we're going to get some colors here, and we're going to read comments also. But let me get the colors first before the comments. We have some colors here, and so be ready. First caller on the line. Caller, your name and where you calling from.
Hello.
Hello, caller, your name and where you calling from.
I'm calling from
Ayome, welcome. Go ahead. Question or comment?
Thank you. Okay. I just have one or two things to say. I'm sorry, but first and foremost, the people that want to lead us, they do not respect us. So they do whatever they want to do. And they understand that the Liberian people are not informed and are not educated to their responsibilities or their civic duties. So they say things to them that they know the Liberian people want to hear. And you cannot have a child. I'm going to have a child. I promise I will feed my child. No, that is what you're supposed to do. You are required to do that. So you cannot entice me or put me on your saba. What are you supposed to do? Not because there is corruption that you're supposed to tell me, oh, you will stop corruption. First of all, there should be no corruption. And because they are not coming there for the sake of the land and the people. All they are coming there for, this is our party. We want it is our time. We hear that in every campaign. Our time. Nobody should have a time. Liberia should have a time 247, 365 days a year. It should be Liberia's time. But we come and fool these people, especially those that, I'm sorry I'm not being personal here, but you can't talk for a political candidate or a party. You know you're not saying the truth.
Thank you.
You know it's wrong. So yeah, I just wanted to say these things.
Thank you.
Yeah, you know how I feel, Dennis.
Thank you, Ayume. So which of the politicians you think have a plan? Nobody? Ayume left. Let's take the second caller here, and that's Elvis Morris. Elvis, go ahead, sir. Elvis, are you there? All right, let me take Thomas Cannon. Thomas, go ahead.
No, sorry, I have my phone on mute.
My man, airplane can blow home. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Good discussion tonight. This is not the sexy part of politics, but it's the most substantial part of it. And I think, it's the boring part, but it's the most important part. Talking about plans and policies and ideology, these are the things that we really need to put our minds to. And as the electorates, we need to focus on these things to pick the best candidate for our future. But I think what we have in Liberia, we have what we call a lucky ticket, political system. I hope the person I'm voting for will be the real person who will change our country. You don't be on luck. People don't vote based on ideology. I mean, the majority of people don't vote based on ideology or any politics. But in Mrs. Family, I think she's been right on most of the points tonight. I think this is her wheelhouse. She's a policy person. So I think she's done an excellent job. But the most disappointing person in this whole thing for me is JMB. I always talk on the topic because as an elder, you have a lot more responsibility to be more prepared. You have all the time to prepare yourself, almost 6 years. And this old wise owl, the wise man in the room hasn't put together a good enough team to give him a solid plan. We have people like Stephen Johnson, Yantor, and other people that are surrounding him. They haven't done that old man in service of bringing together a solid plan. These are people who consider themselves intellectuals, but they're not using their intellect to formulate a plan that will help this campaign. A great show overall. It's not the sexy topics, but it's the most important topics. Thank you again.
Thank you. Everything that is going on, this is the background of it, and that's why we decided to highlight it. Let me go to Thomas Cannon. Thomas, you're live. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. I think like the previous caller said, this is very important, and I think we should talk about this more often. I wanted to go back to, I know I don't have a lot of time, but I wanted to go back to the beginning of the discussion. Do these people need plans? Yes, they need plans. And the thing that can be frustrating is political leaders in Liberia happen to forget that the country is changing, and they don't take note of the fact that the country is changing. The level of literacy in Liberia today is not the level of literacy in 2005. So to hold on to this view that the people don't need plane, they don't need plane, they only need rice. We just need to go and talk to them. How about all of these students who are living in Liberia, who are in the US going to school, in the EU, who are going to school in Turkey, in other places? You categorize all of us with the people who did not go to school that we don't need a plane. They only need to come and talk to us. They don't even put a team together to develop these plans. Quite recently in Kenya, when you saw the team, the two presidential candidates put together, the best sociologists, the best economists, the best teachers, they put their professionals together to be able to do research like Kou is saying, to support these plans. And they went down to the district levels for them to develop their manifesto. But we have 2 or 3 persons sitting and just do something. What do you call 10 points? 10 points. What is the background of these 10 points? What is the background of the acronyms? And the only thing we get are these acronyms. The plans are going to come. They cannot come, right? Which is a kind of a bit painful. And because we don't plan, when we get to government, we don't even have a plan. We don't follow a plan. Institutions in Liberia don't have strategic plans. we develop this national development plan. We all just sing song about it. It's either the agenda for transformation or the PADP now. When you go down below that PADP, where are the sectoral strategic plans? They are not there.
Okay.
Where are the institutional strategic plans? They are not there. And even when we develop the plan, we don't form the plan. We do the plan separately, and the budgets are moving in the next direction. So I think we have a lot of, we have so much problem. And like Paul said, we need to define the problem of this country. Why is this country the way it is? Until we go back and define the problem, we're not going to solve it. Anybody coming to power doesn't talk about how they will generate revenue. They only talk about how they are going to spend. Where are you going to spend it if you don't raise it?
Right.
So we really need to sit down and define what the problem of this country is. Thank you.
Thank you. I was speaking to one of the presidential candidates, and to your point, Thomas, that where would the money come from? He said we're going to plug the holes of all the corruption, and then we're going to get the money. Yeah. But they have not been able to quantify how much they will generate from corruption. They will not tell you, okay, at the Ministry of Education, this is the number of ghost payroll. The money there is going to this. So if I close these loopholes, this is how much I'm going to get. I'm going to use this money to do X, Y, Z. It's none there. All we know is, but I think people that support these presidents, these candidates without plan, they just dig their toes in and they're going to support that person no matter what. I think they are the problem, but we'll come to that. Ayume, you came back. What's going on? I thought you finished talking.
No, I just wanted to point out about writing a plan. Every candidate in there has traveled in Africa, has traveled abroad, and we know that whatever you do, you must make a note. Even a housewife, I will go to the market in the morning, I will do. Everybody must make a plan. And you cannot implement a plan from your head. Even if you go to the supermarket, if you don't make a list, you will forget something. But because they don't want to be held accountable for what they will tell the people on that plan that will be written, so they'll just do it to get for the, we're talking away for the people, so that we can go there accountable. The check and balance or transparency we're talking about, we know we're not ready for that. Actually, nobody over there that will do check and balance. Let's forget this. First of all, let's be honest. The government is the reflection of the Liberian people because we are dishonest. You different person sitting out, we sitting out over there. So if we are honest, we'll put honest people there. But if we are not honest, we'll put dishonest people there. So I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you. Please be ready to answer the question. Here, this one comments, Dave is saying, does anyone in this panel remember some highlights of a Liberian presidential candidate's plan for our past election? Do Liberians pay attention to plans or the character of politicians? So I want to add that before you start responding. Let me start with Ahmed on the questions and the comment, or the callers and the comment.
Yes, thank you. I mean, the callers just express their frustrations and the frustration that, some of us on the panel have expressed. It's a reflection, in the viewers' comments. You made a point about some politicians don't want the people to know the plan or even write it down. Because they want to avoid being held accountable. It's real, because when you're running for office, you have to tell the people what is it that you're going to do and how you would do it. How are you going to fund it? You have to show that you know the problems, and you have to tell them how you know the problem. And that means that, Thomas and others have indicated that you've actually done the research, serious research. It's not I'm writing down 10-point plan, I'm just regurgitating something from someplace. No. Do you understand the districts, the counties, the constituents and constituencies you want to represent? What are the problems? The Liberia is, yes, generally a rural country. You may say, okay, southeast and this part and that part. But people in Maryland may have certain unique types of needs than those in other parts of Nima or other parts of Montserrat, so we need to understand these, right? I want to go back to what Thomas Scanis said about uh, institutions and strategic plans. When I talk about institutionalism on this panel time and time again, these are some of the ways you show that you really have your practicing institutionalism, right? You know how an institution runs, and therefore you actually are attempting to run the institution that way. You have strategy, you have a strategic plan. The strategic plan has to be, you have to show how you implement this plan. What time you, what are the phases, and how do you scale or phase what, and then how do you measure this, and how do you report that back or course correct? Uh, we don't engage in that type of governance. We just, even if somebody attempted, maybe a donor that's funding a particular institution or an aspect of their work, that donor insists on a certain plan, they will manage to come up with something, but they don't follow through. You ask people in the CDC administration right now, the PAPD that you crafted in the beginning of your administration, how have you been measuring to see progress? What are the results, and what milestone have you accomplished? How have you communicated this to the Liberian people? It'll be lacking. All right, and it's not just the CDC, other previous governments before them. So in order to make progress, we really have to go back to the roots and say, okay, why are others doing better and we can't? What is wrong with us? Is there something wrong with us? Is there something with, obviously we're doing something wrong? It can't be that difficult that Kenyans can have a very solid, well-researched campaign plan, and then out of that they say, okay, now I've won. Here's how I will govern. Here's how I'm going to fund it. This is exactly what I want the people, the Kenyan people who elected me to know, the Liberian people who elected me to know. And by the way, I'll report back to you periodically, right? So the callers, I think, just expressed some of these really public problems that we've been talking about all evening.
Thank you. Let me read this comment and then call. You can come in. There was one comment from Dave that says, in the past, do you remember any plan that they put forth? This one says, Liberians have heard over hundreds of thousands of political plans and agendas from parties and individual candidates. Again, what impact of those plans and agendas can we point out today? For example, all of the political parties and candidates spoke about road connectivity, yet Liberia is not connected. Until these politicians are caught and judged by the rules of law, thereby challenging their bad attitudes and behavior, we should not believe in whatever plans and agenda they will speak about. And I think that's speak to what we've been talking, right? That, people are just putting out platitudes, that what people are putting out there, most of them are not plans. Carl, what's your take on those two comments and the colors? Oh, sorry, you were having feedback, so go ahead.
Yeah, I think the callers articulated themselves well and their concerns well. And I think we've thoroughly covered the reason the plans have just been, talked in the recent past. We have had very solid executions of political plans in the past. One of the things when I talk about people don't study the problem, they don't even study the country. You want to be president of a country you know nothing about. That's sickening. It's unbelievable. So you would ask a politician, what plans in the past were implemented well and brought some progress, and they won't be able to tell you because they haven't cared to look into it. That is part of the work that's necessary to advance the state. You have to go back to the fork in the road and see where we made the wrong turn in order to correct us and put us back on a proper path. I am not aware of any politician in a developed or advanced country, any serious politician, I'm not talking about the couple of buffoons here and there, who is not rooted in a sense of history, who is not rooted in a sense of understanding the purpose of the state, where it's been, in order to articulate where it needs to go. We have on this platform, the Liberia History Channel, we have expressed in great detail the achievements of people who came before us. Yet we have politicians who want to be president that are constantly saying nothing has been done since 1847. It is an outrage. We have politicians, elected officials that go to the embassy of a foreign country and ask them to interfere, ask for them to interfere in our democracy as if we're at war. Elected officials who have the authority to summon people to come to the Senate for questioning because they confirm them. Elected officials who, if that is exhausted, belong to international bodies like ECOWAS and the United Nations that they can also go to. Elected officials that can employ the Supreme Court to come in and intervene. They'd rather commit an act of treason by deferring their constitutional power to a foreign state. Can you imagine? Nobody's outraged. This gets back to this whole thing when we talk about education, and to AMA Cassell's point, they don't respect the country. They don't respect the citizens. They don't respect the Constitution that they take an oath to uphold. There's no constitutional provision for begging America to interfere in your democracy. That is ridiculous. An elected official the other day, not even just the other day, that all they do, all of them, from the president to all of the opposition leaders, with the exception of JMB, really, I haven't seen JMB go cowering in front of the U.S. embassy or to the U.S. ambassador or to some foreign country. I haven't seen it. But everybody else in recent times has done something very embarrassing like that. I'm putting all of this together just to say that what we need to start doing as informed citizens, as educated citizens, is be the vanguard for the masses. Everyone in France is not educated. Everyone in the United States is not educated. Everyone in Japan is not educated, right? But the people who are, they need to stop being quiet, and they need to stop being sycophants, and they need to speak up and guide the process. You didn't go to school to be sitting down and going with, oh, the masses want this, so we'll follow. You went to school to lead. You went to school so that you can lead the process, so that you can be the guiding light for your fellow citizens. Stephen Johnson, all of you, Dolake, all of you, that's what you went to school for. Not to sit down and listen to two-bit hustlers who didn't really, really go to school like you did, right? Because they're loud and obnoxious, then you will follow them. No, you grab them and you be the leader that you are, because you know better.
Thank you.
That's what needs to happen in order for there to be a difference. Those with competence need to be competent. And stop saying, swallow your fear of not wanting to be. It's your responsibility, it's your bounden duty. The talented small percentage of people in our country that have actually been educated, I'm not talking about the people who have degrees conferred upon them from substandard institutions. I'm talking about those of you that went to the Georgetowns and the Howard and the Harvards. Y'all know who you are. It is time for you to stand up and say, hey, all our degrees are not equal, my man. I know better. I come and stand in front. Let me lead. That's what I want to see happen. And you'll see the rest follow.
Thank you. Mr. Yonton, you can come in here. Jimmy Eastman said, plans are one thing, execution is another. Sometimes plans have to be revised as you progress. The goals may stay the same, but it requires consistency and sense of purpose. Time is fast spent, so 1 minute each, so you can respond to our callers and the comments. Mr. Yonton, and then Jonathan will come.
Yeah, a couple of things. The first thing is that we have to understand that election has a cycle, right? It's run around different schedules and time. You have a time when the candidate announces that he will run for whatever political office. And then you have the time where he draw and carve out a plan. And then you have the campaign time in which candidates are allowed to launch their different plans, right, in keeping with the election cycle. So this whole idea of people articulating their plans and not launching it is because of the cycle too as well. So we have to take that into consideration. Um, we talk about Kenya. Ruto contested in a very, complex election, right, where Kenya has this creep on ethnicity, which draft the conversation to a larger extent. The election was in August 2022. Ruto officially launched his campaign platform and manifesto in June of the same of 2022. So you see, the 2 months in between, right? Usually, by conventional wisdom, at least within a year of the election cycle, candidates can begin now making public their plans. So we should not have the conversation in a vacuum as though all of the candidates in the race don't have a plan in a way. At least I know for Joseph Yoman Barker, he has a plan, and he has articulated those plans on many interviews on different platforms. But we also have to take into consideration the election cycle. I'll also like to pick on a little bit on Mr. Salif. I'm not quite sure when Mr. Salif went back to Liberia. I mean, maybe he can provide that information because it seems that all of his ideas here are just theoretical, and he have not understood the human magnitude that surrounds the people's problem in Liberia. It's one thing to say, oh, the plan must do this, I must say why, or I haven't seen anything in the plan. But it's another thing to understand what's happening on the ground. All right. The social dynamics, the social construct on the ground, the everyday interaction with people in West Point and Sunny Wayne, and the things they aspire can be reflected in the overall manifesto that's captured in the plan. So your understanding of the people, your understanding of the state, the history, especially in the case of Liberia, we are almost 20 years since we entered the Civil War. This is the longest of our post-conflict dynamics that have won this relative peace. But has Liberia moved away from being a fragile country? No. Have we seen some of the social problems that engulfed the country during the Civil War and even before still persist? Yes. So you have to articulate your plan within the context of the contemporary times, this moment, because this moment is the moment that we inhabit. This is this Liberia that we have. It's not a Liberia that Joseph Jenkins Driver had, or the Liberia that Samuel Doe had in the 1980s. This is the moment.
All right.
So, and just one last point again. I think I dropped down all the points there. When the callers talk about their disappointment in JMB, I don't know exactly where the disappointment is coming from, but I think we all have to take stewardship of the kind of country we want to see. It is not only the responsibility of politicians to do so. We have civil society organizations. We have active citizenship. We have more Liberians today in today's Liberia that are intellectual, that have gone to school and educated as compared to when we had in the 1970s. So we all, as individual citizens, have to take responsibility. All right. A lot of time people say, "Oh, we don't hear the politicians talking. We don't hear the opposition talking." What are you waiting for to talk to yourself? Huh? You're Liberian. You equally concerned about the country, right? Why don't you talk? So we as we move along, we have to also educate our people that it is part of your civic responsibility to speak up against ills in society, to stand up when no one is willing to stand up,
Thank
and
you.
to help move the country in the direction that we all want to see it.
And Mr. Yontom, I will let Mr. Salif come in to respond to that. But what I want to ask you is, maybe we're looking at this plan to be something big, right? But if you are running for president, there are like 3 questions you want to answer, right? Why you want to be president? And for Liberia, what are some of the issues that you have identified and what you're going to do to change those things that you were talking about? What are you going to do for me, right? So simply, that's what we are looking for from our presidential candidate. Are you saying it's too soon to write that down so we can see it?
You talking to me?
Mr.
Dennis, yeah,
Youngton.
Oh, you're
uh,
asking me?
Yeah,
Oh,
you know, but okay.
no. I don't think. I just threw that in so that we understand the context in which we have in the
no, because
conversation.
I think what we are
Yeah.
saying is it is okay for Mr. Bwaka not to show us anything written down up to this point because Ruto did it and Ruto. That's what I was getting.
But even let's go back to Africa's superpower, Nigeria, right? Nigeria goes to election in February next year.
Hmm.
The candidate that is winning in all of the polls, Peter Obi, just launched his campaign manifesto just a few weeks ago. I'm saying that election has cycle. There's
Okay.
a time allocated for campaign. There are times a candidate can, declare their intentions to run. There are different phases in election. So we should
Thank
not
you.
have the conversation in a vacuum as though that we are now bound by certain times and certain schedules.
Thank you. Mr. Salih, you have 30 seconds to respond to Yonto and then I go to Jonathan for his.
Youngton took 3 minutes to. Then you say I have 30 seconds. Listen, the argument here is not that we don't understand the election, so have circles and things are done in a segmented way. I think that is a disservice to the Liberian people. Mr. Youngton, uh, to active citizenship that you articulated, which is what I articulated, obligations and responsibility of citizens, is not theoretical. The how, holding the candidate feet to the fire, scrutinizing their vision and their leadership inclinations and styles and what they would do, them telling us how they will fund it. How are they going to do what they said they would do is not theoretical. Um, it's not theoretical either to do the research, to understand your country. The very people you yourself made my point, right? You defeated your own argument that you have to understand the context. You have to understand the people in West Point. You have to understand the people everywhere and craft your plan around that. That's research. That's demographic research. That's what I talked about. So if you don't understand, how to do political campaigns or how to do this type of work, it's not evidence that the other person is theoretical or they don't know what they're talking about. I worked in Liberia in just very recently. I'm there regularly. I'm not one who just does armchair stuff. I work for major development government that work directly with the government. I tour the country, length, left and breadth of the country, the rural, and the projects with the rural people. So I've studied Liberia. I've worked there recently. I don't think you know Liberia more than me to school me on understanding the context. How do you understand context if you don't do the research properly? How you don't demonstrate to us that you know the country? Then you come here to lecture me that I'm being theoretical. I think that's this ingenuous. It's not. I appreciate what you're trying to do because you're speaking for a politician, a political party's position. That's fine. You've done your job tonight, right? But do the citizenship responsibility and obligation that has been conferred upon you as a Liberian citizen. That's why I'm asking you and holding myself to and asking every Liberian.
Thank you. Mr. Dolake.
Thank you, Dennis, and thanks to all our colleagues who have made a point. I firstly want to ask a rhetorical question as to whether we all that participated, because I know Cole was in the campaign process 2017, have we all, okay, you contributed or somehow, let it not be, but your party was there. Have we all asked ourselves why we are one without a platform, without a debate, nothing whatsoever? And that question is rhetorical because it will give us the sense of direction as to what portion of the Cummings platform I will drag this conversation to as we are speaking, which premise on education. I began the conversation by saying that Article 10 of our Constitution Has it been implemented and taught in all schools so that we have the civil understanding of what our rights and its limitations are? We do not have it. So, do we have competing priorities? There are priorities all over. Priority of sanitation, priority of road connotation, priority of agriculture, even just the subsidy of the rights that are provided, it is priority. So among these things, how do Mr. Cummings and the CPP intend to address them? We have bundled them in different segments. And so when it comes to education, which is key to this plan, that you can make the plan, but the person you communicating the plan, don't you understand the plan? And can the person in my sister call whom understand the plan better? What are the resources that needed to drive that plan in the absence of the Constitution not being taught in every school, in elementary school? Therefore, you are requesting the plan to be taught. So I'm saying that we need a plan. It is true. The ANC had a plan before in the past. Our plan targets corruption, having a fast code that will fast track corruption, and that will try people that McGill, that will try people the Biltwa way, so that American people are not burdened with our corruption cases. But what is very important is also that we need to provide jobs. And if you must provide the jobs so that Ghanaians will not come and go into our electricity and take the job, and go into our hydro and take the job, go into water and sewer and take all the technical jobs, it means you have to have education. And that is why Mr. Cummings is not just saying this thing as a lip service. He's saying it by a demonstrated action. And that demonstrated action is in the AME University and its graduate program based on the support that you are given. It's in the STEM school. It's in Nima Community College. It's even if you want to talk about the Prince Joseph fighter that people be afraid to say.
You keep skipping the PYJ University.
It's in it. It's in it. The thing you taught me university. So that's how you do it. You don't have to talk this thing, and sweet talk, like bro will be fun, and like bro will get glamour. No, it must be done through action. And these are the started actions that Mr. Cummings have been taking along the way. So I like to say that Mr. Cummings lastly had gone to no embassy to really get his responsibility to go protest or to go petition a U.S. government. Never ever. Liberians that have been confronted with situation, and if we will be degraded for it, I will take responsibility. I like to take onus. I like to take responsibility of my action. We have thought that our government have been in bad mark, and so if what we did by going to U.S. embassy was ignorant, it was wrong. We take cue for it. We take the corrective measure. But today, I brought the U.S. government to our sanctioned officials that are listening to Liberian cry because of wanton stealings and pillaging of our economy.
Thank you.
So the ANC our platform. What?
Thank you. We want to take a short break and go to our Tabata session and then call it a night. But let me remind you, tomorrow at 8 p.m. we're going to have debate. You all know FOL is the home of the debate. So tomorrow we're going to have a debate. The Liberia under President Weah versus Liberia under President Sirleaf. Choppy Charlie representing the CDC and a supporter of Mr. Weah and a member of the CDC versus Maurice Krumah, who support President Sirleaf and also work in the Sirleaf administration. You don't want to miss that. That's happening right here on Debate Friday tomorrow. Also, on Sunday, I'm going to be here to interview Ambassador Louis Garcia Brown on his NPFL connections, his roles in the Taylor, Ellen, and Weah government, now his role on Tim Cummings, and some of his recent articles he's been calling and criticizing the Weah government. We're going to be talking about all that on Sunday. You don't want to miss it. At this time, we normally take up some time to go to our Tabata session because there is Tabata going on almost every day in our country. So we will do our Tabata session here. prepare for your Tabata. We're going to take a short break and be right back.
Hello and welcome to Focus on Liberia. For education, information, culture, entertainment, and overall wide variety of programs, tune in to Focus on Liberia, the best in Liberian diaspora television. We are focused on Liberia, from Patawi Falls to the Blue Lake of Bombay, from the Bella Forest in Bapulu to the Atlantic coastline in Buchanan, from Lake Piso in Cape Mount to the Putu and Tiempo mountain ranges of Ground Jide, from River Noah in Grand Cru County to Foya in Lofa, from the Firestone rubber plantation in Habel to the Port of Harper in Maryland, from Providence Island in Monrovia to Sacrepie in Nimba, from Sister City in Riverside to the Kilipo Range in River G, from the Gola Forest in northwest Liberia to the valleys of Jiripo in Sino County. We are focused on Liberia with the strong conviction to educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia, our glorious land of liberty. On Liberia with the strong conviction.
Welcome back to Focus on Liberia Tough Talking Thursday. At this time, we know there's Tabata going on somewhere in the country. Let's start with Mr. Yonton. Tabata is a southeastern world made complete foolishness, nonsense. Tabata. Mr. Yonton, what's your Tabata of the week?
Well, I find it incredulously foolish in the midst of all of the crises that we have. We have a president that is traveling for 7 weeks out of the country, and not only that, has assembled millions of dollars of taxpayer money to go and have party and fun time in the name of going to grace the World Cup. The fact that Liberia, on this footballing precedent, cannot even cross RIA or even defeat a third division team in Europe. The fact that Liberia is performing very poor in the football arena says a whole lot about this president, but it also says a whole lot about whether he really has the country at heart, whether he really have love for his people, because our people are starving. We're still in the midst of a serious rice crisis, serious economic crisis. And the president is taking 1 point something million for 7 weeks out of the country. And God knows what he's going to be doing. Masquerading with, I don't want to say the other one, but it's just on top of that. I find it very, very incredulous.
Thank you. Let me go to Mr. Salif. He's now going to take a pew on this one. Mr. Salif, what's your Tabata of the week?
Well, my Tabata is that someone posted that Liberia has passed the MCC scorecard, and they're begging Liberians not to turn it into a Tabata because it's so important. Every Liberian should celebrate and rally around that. It sounded very funny. It's like you're saying, listen, I feel before now I've passed. Please celebrate me. That part where the person was saying, "Oh, please, I hope don't turn this into," and literally use the word Tabata.
Thank you, Mr. Dolake.
Yeah, my Tabata of the week is, I think it happened today in particular, that Liberians will still have the mind, in Buchanan specifically, to have gone to the Liberty Party headquarters and bust up the billboard that had the late Councillor Bronskin photo on it. It was quite, that extent to which the man is peacefully resting, and then you go after an image. I can imagine. So that's my Tabata. I can wrap my head around it.
Thank you. Carl?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. I would say just this increase in domestic murder. I wouldn't call it violence, domestic murder cases in Liberia. And I'm sure that it's just an increase in reporting, and because of social media now, everybody has access. So I'm not necessarily sure if there's more incidents of it, or if it's just a situation where we're becoming more aware of it. But the Tabata for me is the fact that the government isn't looking at this, and the citizens themselves are not looking at this as a serious emergency. A lot of young women are being killed. Liberians, for the man who was allegedly killed by having his genitals squeezed, probably in self-defense, because you don't just have an argument with your genitalia out. It's probably a situation where someone was trying to force himself on someone and she protected herself, because you don't just get into an argument with somebody and your genitals are available to be squeezed. But that aside, that took up so much of people's time. All of these men and women, engage in this thing, go to squeeze a man's, private parts. And there's little children being raped. It's not getting as much attention. There's women being murdered. There was another one today, I think Focus on Liberia posted, a 28-year-old strangled his girlfriend to death. This, for me, the lack of seriousness and the gender ministry, Ministry of Health, everyone needs to get together and do this domestic violence awareness. Let women know that there's, create an environment where women know that they don't have to live in these situations. People's mothers are being killed. We're leaving children without mothers. And so my Tabata is just the lack of, serious and urgent attention to the situation. It's a crisis.
Thank you. Our viewers too, they have some Tabata here. Jeremy Weeks said, my Tabata is a continuous disrespect to the land and its people. Stephen Johnson, an ideologue of the Unity Party, and Joseph Barker, say, my Tabata is Liberia is sponsoring a president to attend the World Cup in order to see his son play for the USA. Doris Thompson, my Tabata is the president travel and no one knows the budget for the 7 weeks plus. That's Tabata. And let me see if we have more Tabata, which I believe. Elvis Morris, my Tabata of the week is the president leaving the country for 7 weeks. Who will be running the country in his stead? Tue, wow, what a Tabata. Where's the justice minister and the VP? Whether the senators going to the U.S. embassy for the U.S. embassy to do the job, to do their job, is that a Tabata I'm going to consider? But what really outweigh that Tabata is people calling for an overthrow of the government. I see people are saying, let the armed forces take over. Others saying, hey, this article of the Constitution said that people can change their government, talking about armed struggle. I mean, after we've gone through coup d'etat, invasion, World War 1, 2, 3, and 4, and somebody will be talking this, I believe this is complete Tabata. We shouldn't say, especially the people it's coming from. Another Tabata here from Levy Thompson is the lies that government put forth and the citizens believe them. Those are the Tabata of the week that you all see. Now we've gone way over our time. Please take 38 seconds each to give me your closing comment. I really, really appreciate your time discussing plans. Plans are very important. The reason we are voting the way we're doing, the reason people are acting the way they act is these are not required. We put the cart before the horse. We don't care what they tell us, we are voting. Okay? People will say, okay, let these two parties, these three parties come together, regardless of what they believe. What if they believe, their ideology? What are their ideologies? What are the things, where do they want to carry the country? That do you see a line for which you want them to come together? But all we see is, we just see faces. And so if we are not making the right decision at the ballot box based on ideas, if it is only about people, or because we find ourselves on this side, so we have to dig our toes in the ground for them, then the issues we see president going out for traveling for 7 weeks, people going to the U.S. embassy for the embassy to do their jobs. All these things are rooted solely into the lack of ideas, the lack of ideology, and people that are even voting don't even know the function of a legislator. All these things, and that's why it's very important for us to discuss plans. What's in it? What should we look for? Why is it important for our democracy? I want to really, really appreciate your time. Let's go around the room and let me get your closing statement for 48 seconds at most. Let's start with Mr. Salif.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. It's been a very spirited discussion. I enjoyed it. I come here every time you ask me to because I am answering to the call that our colleague was throwing out of us. If you have an education, you have ideas, you should exercise citizenship by providing leadership in your own sphere of influence. And I think we do that because we all care about Liberia. We love Liberia. We're calling on these political leaders who have put themselves forth as candidates to run for the highest office in the land. We're scrutinizing them because we want them to be the best versions of themselves. We want them to care for Liberia and Liberians. And so we hope they can take some of these ideas and implement them.
Thank you. Let me go to Mr. Dulake for your closing comment.
Thank you, Dennis, and thanks to everyone on this platform. I'd like to say that there's a need for plans, but these plans should be accompanied by educating our people so that they are able to consume those plans in an adequate manner and form. And so it is embarrassing on our part that taxpayers will be paying for subsidy of rice in order to make it available, and then because of wanton stealing, will not have it available. The agriculture minister will stand before the Senate and say she doesn't know about the accountability of 11 million. It brings us to corruption, and that is why under Mr. Cummings' leadership, he has spoken that we need an aggressive court system that can fast-track the issue of corruption cases than what is currently going on, where President Weah is yet to set up an investigation against Maggie and the rest of the guys who have been sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury Department, our partners in development agenda.
Thank you. Mrs. Famala?
So there are two ways to inspire people. Dolaka asked an important question. He said, it was rhetorical, but why did people vote for George Weah? So star power and inspiration are the two things that make people gravitate towards someone. You have to light their fire. And if someone is a star, they don't have to have a platform because people are just going to gravitate to them. When there's lack of a platform, you're going to follow your heart. People vote on emotion. And the emotional trigger with Weah and CDC was, this is our superstar during the war. I myself was one of the biggest George Weah fans ever. So of course, George Weah is going to win an election when we're lacking in many other ways. He has star power. Right now, none of the opposition people have the kind of charisma, the natural charisma that Weah has. So you must come with something that is going to inspire and evoke passion in people to follow you. None of them have the star power that George Weah has. So the platform and the plan, the big future picture that you will paint for the people to look to, that is what is important.
Thank you. Mr. Yonton, you have the last word.
Yeah, I agree with Cole. George Weah has a star power, and we're seeing the result of his leadership at the moment. And so there's a shift in the national appeal at the moment, and you can see how ordinary Liberians, grassroots, and the working class, civil servant, and all Liberians are now rallying around Joseph Boakai. It's the mistake of 2017 that has to be corrected, and we will learn from that mistake in a way that no sooner will we ever choose a celebrity to govern the mantle of authority, the state that has its own complexity, that has a lot of urgency. So we're going to make corrections of those mistakes in 2023. There's one quick point I just wanted to make. It's a wonderful thing. I'm from AMU. I'm a alum from AMU. I graduated in 2013. The AMU has radically transformed to becoming one of the best universities in Liberia. They have an ongoing partnership with the Cummins Africa Foundation. I admire Cummins for his passion to education is something undoubted. But the fact that you will attribute an organization, the Cummins Africa Foundation, that is in partnership with the African Methodist Episcopal University and attribute it to common success, it raises a lot of question about honesty and authenticity. When people form 501c3 organizations in America, we all know what happened. All right. So they go around lobbying for dollars, taxpayer US dollars. They go through grants and other contributions and help the cause that they want to promote wherever they want to promote it. So we thought that it's necessary to have that record straight. It is not Cummins' personal money. Cummins is not investing in education off his pocket. It's off the Cummins Africa Foundation. I thought to make it clear. But overall, it's been a wonderful show.
Thank you. One last Tabata here from Dave Ja. The greatest Tabata of all time is George Weah's presidency, despite his high degree of incompetence and lack of the basic elementary capacity. Liberia has embarrassed itself. All right. Again, I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank our viewers for always watching Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. On that note, we're going to close with our song. And let me note, somebody wrote and said they hate this song. They say, in fact, the person singing the song is what? Maybe that's my relative. But we are all Liberians, and we want to always stress that at the end of our show that in spite of our differences, we are all Liberians, and we must do whatever it takes to make our country the glorious land of liberty. Have a good night, and God bless you.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home.